No one could have predicted that a single song, just one song, would ignite one of the most explosive nights in Kenyaman's recent history. It wasn't a scandal, it wasn't a fight, it wasn't even a statement. It was simply a moment when Demet Özdemir's voice filled the room. The event was supposed to be elegant, controlled, and almost boring, a charity gala filled with industry insiders, a politely attentive audience, and cameras waiting for nothing more than routine soundbites. But everything changed the moment the host announced a musical tribute to Turkish cinema, and Demet's iconic song, their song, according to fans, echoed across the hall. At first, people didn't think much of it. But then they saw Can's reaction. Not exaggerated. Not dramatic. Just real. His shoulders stiffened. His eyes flickered. His breath caught in that tiny, involuntary way that gives everything away. The cameras zoomed in immediately, they always do with him. And caught the exact second nostalgia hit him like a wave. And right there, sitting 2 seats away from him, was Sara. The woman the media insisted was the new chapter in his life. The woman fans attacked viciously. The woman who tried her best to stay out of the chaos. But she saw it. She saw everything. The way the notes carried memories. The way his eyes softened for a moment he couldn't hide. The way silence always reveals what the heart is trying not to say. And according to the rep who broke the silence the next morning, this was the moment everything shifted. Because Sara didn't get angry. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't get up or walk away. She turned her head, slowly, deliberately, and looked right at Can. The cameras didn't catch her expression. They were too busy zooming in on him. But the people at the table did. And so did his rep, and according to him, what she said next was soft. Quiet. But powerful enough to become the headline of the entire night. According to his rep, it wasn't a fight. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't bitterness. It was something much deeper, something that cut through the noise and exposed the truth beneath the surface. And the rep's exact words were, after that song, Sara looked at him with the calmest face and said something that made everyone freeze. The table went silent. A producer nearby stopped mid-drink. Even the host, from across the room, sensed something shift. Because no one expected Sara to say anything. No one expected her to confront something so delicate, so loaded with history, so intertwined with the story the public refuses to let die. But she did. And the rep says the truth behind those words is far more emotional than any rumor, any headline, or any fan theory. Because what she said wasn't about rivalry. It wasn't about fear. It wasn't about Demet. It was about Can. And it was about the man she saw sitting beside her, caught between past and future, memory and reality, silence and truth. But her exact words? Those would come later. For now, all the world knew was that the moment the song played, the emotional ground beneath the table cracked open, and Sara was the first to acknowledge it. And according to the rep, that sentence was the turning point no one saw coming. Everyone at that table felt it. The shift in the air, the weight in Can's posture, the way the melody wrapped around him like a memory he wasn't ready to face. The gala lights glittered across the room, cameras continued flashing, people kept smiling politely as if nothing unusual was happening, but at that table, reality was cracking open. The song wasn't just music. It was a reminder. A timestamp from a part of his life the world refused to forget. A part of his life Sara had stepped into cautiously, always aware of the shadows that preceded her. But she had never truly seen it until that moment. How one melody could still touch a part of him he tried so hard to bury beneath schedules, discipline, and silence. And yet, there was no anger in her. No resentment. According to the rep who witnessed the interaction, Sara didn't tense. Didn't sigh. Didn't retreat. Instead, she studied him. Not as a celebrity, not as the man the world demanded explanations from, but as a human being silently fighting a memory he didn't choose to relive. And that, the rep said, was the moment he knew something important was about to happen. Around the table, whispers started, tiny, cautious, sharp. Did you see his face? Oh my God, that's Demet's song. Look at Sara, why is she so calm? This is going to trend everywhere. Meanwhile, the cameras kept rolling, sensing drama even where there was none yet. A producer whispered to his assistant, "Stay on them. Don't cut. Something's happening." And then it happened, the moment that would later break the internet once the rep revealed the truth. The music softened, the lights dimmed, and Sara slowly leaned a little closer to Can. Not dramatically. Not for attention. Simply enough that only he, and the people seated very close, could hear her. Her voice was steady. Her face was peaceful. And she said something short, something simple, something that hit harder than shouting ever could. The rep remembers the moment perfectly. He said the table went so quiet he could hear the clink of a fork from across the hall. Because what she said wasn't expected. It wasn't passive-aggressive. It wasn't insecure. It wasn't competitive. It was honest. It was mature. It was deep. But before he revealed her exact words, he explained the look on Can's face. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't embarrassment. It was surprise, real, human surprise, because what she said wasn't what anyone predicted. The rep said Can's eyes widened for half a second. The kind of reaction that slips through before a person gains control of their expression again. And then, almost immediately, something softened in him. The tension in his shoulders eased. His breath steadied. He blinked slowly, grounding himself. And the people at the table saw it too. The moment he shifted internally. A quiet acceptance. A quiet understanding. A quiet release. Meanwhile, socialites at nearby tables kept glancing over, desperately trying to decode the interaction. One woman whispered to her husband, "If this becomes breaking news tomorrow, remember I told you first." She had no idea how right she was. Because when the rep broke the silence the next morning, he said, Sara didn't confront him. She didn't accuse him. She didn't ask for explanations. She simply spoke the truth she saw in his eyes. That truth was about to become the headline of the year. And while the exact words hadn't been revealed yet, everyone who was near the table that night agreed on one thing: whatever Sara said, it wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. The beginning of a conversation. The beginning of honesty. The beginning of a shift in the story the world thought it already understood. But no one was prepared for how powerful that single sentence would be once it finally came out. By the time the song faded out and applause filled the hall, people assumed the tension at Can's table had dissolved. Cameras pulled away, guests resumed small talk, waiters began serving the next course. From the outside, the moment seemed over. But inside that small circle, within the few people who actually witnessed the exchange, something profound was still unfolding. Can sat unusually still, not stiff, but grounded, as if replaying Sara's words in his mind. And Sara, she wasn't staring at him anymore. She wasn't waiting for a reaction. She wasn't seeking validation. She had simply said what she needed to say, and now she was letting the moment breathe. The rep explained later that this was the part that shocked him the most. She didn't cling to what she said. She didn't repeat it, push it, or clarify it. She just let it exist. And that, in a world where everyone rushes to explain themselves, was powerful. But around them, the whispers intensified. Everyone at the table sensed something had shifted between them, but no one knew how deep it went. That confusion sparked a quiet unease that traveled from one person to another. What did she say? Why did it calm him? Why didn't she look upset? Meanwhile, a famous director seated 3 tables away noticed the moment and scribbled something in his notebook. Something he later admitted was a line too poetic not to steal for a future script. Because even from far away, anyone with emotional intelligence could see that a truth had been spoken between them. And truths, especially the quiet ones, have gravity. As dessert was served, the rep leaned toward another team member and whispered, he needed to hear that. But before the colleague could ask what Sara had said, a camera crew approached the table. The moment was interrupted. The spell broken. The rep described this interruption as something that saved the night from spiraling. Because if the conversation had continued, the emotional weight might have pushed both of them into territory neither was prepared to face publicly. Instead, they straightened up, smiled politely, and switched back into their public personas. Flashing lights. Quick answers. Polished images. But beneath the surface of those perfect, glamorous smiles was a shared awareness that something intimate had passed between them moments earlier. Fans felt it too when the video from the event went online later that night. They didn't hear the words. They didn't see the emotion directly. But they saw the shift, the softening in his expression, the calm in hers, the way they both carried themselves differently after the moment. It was all there. Just beneath the surface. Hidden, but visible to anyone willing to look. When the gala ended, guests exited slowly, forming little clusters on the marble steps outside. Some chatted about the performances. Some exchanged business cards. But the people who had seen the moment, really seen it, were quiet. Reflective. A stylist whispered to a friend, I think she told him something important. A journalist murmured, he looked relieved. And the rep, who had been closest to the table and overheard everything, remained absolutely silent, until the next morning, when he finally broke that silence. But before we reach that revelation, there was one final moment from the night that no camera caught, a moment only the rep noticed. As Ken and Sara left the venue, walking a short distance behind the group, Ken reached for her hand. But not romantically. Not dramatically. Not the way fans imagine. It was subtle. Gentle. A grounding gesture. A moment of connection. A silent thank you. And Sara didn't pull away. She let him hold it for 3 steps, 3 quiet, human steps, before they separated again as the crowds grew thicker outside the doors. Those 3 steps told the rep everything he needed to know. Whatever she had said to him, it healed something. Maybe something small. Maybe something huge. But definitely something real. And the world had no idea what those words were, yet. Because the next morning, when the rep finally spoke publicly, that was when everything truly exploded. By the next morning, the gala had already become the biggest trending topic across Turkey, Italy, Spain, and the Middle East. Not because of the event itself, not because of the awards, the speeches, or the performances, but because of that single moment when Demet's song played and Sara quietly leaned toward Ken. Clips of Ken's expression were everywhere. Fans slowed the footage down, zoomed in, added dramatic music, made side-by-side edits comparing his reaction to old behind-the-scenes moments from years ago. It was chaos. Pure emotional chaos. But what the public didn't know was that something even bigger was brewing behind the scenes, something that would break the internet as soon as it went public. The rep, who had stayed silent all night, had spent those early morning hours reviewing his own memories of the night, replaying the moment in his mind. He was shocked, not by what Sara said, but by the effect it had on Ken. You don't see him get emotional easily, he explained later. He doesn't show vulnerability in public. But that moment, it hit him. Meanwhile, fans were convinced they had cracked the code. Some insisted Sara had finally confronted him. Others swore she had asked if he still loved Demet. Others said she whispered something cold, something jealous, something bitter. But none of them were close. Not even remotely. Because while the world was speculating with increasingly dramatic theories, something else was happening behind closed doors, something that would turn this into the biggest headline of the month. It started when Ken's team received a wave of messages from journalists asking for comments. Each one more persistent than the previous. What happened at the table? Is there tension between the women? What did Sara say? Was Ken emotional because of the song? Is Demet involved in anything? The pressure was building, and the rep realized that if they didn't say something soon, the public would shape its own version of the truth, and that version would be far worse than reality. So he requested a meeting. A short, quiet one. Just him and 2 other members of the team. They sat around a small table in a private office, phones buzzing nonstop with notifications, while the rep remained unusually calm. "We need to say something," he finally said. "Not everything. But something truthful. Something that shows the humanity of the moment." "Should we deny anything?" one manager asked. He shook his head instantly. "No. Denials will make the story bigger." "Should we stay silent?" asked another. "Silence will create a war," the rep answered. And this wasn't a war. There was no jealousy. No drama. No fight. He hesitated before continuing. "If we don't speak, they'll pit one woman against the other. Again." And that was the truth, they had seen it happen too many times. Fans creating narratives, media twisting emotions, people weaponizing nostalgia. They couldn't let that happen again. Because this time, what happened wasn't a scandal. It was human. Quiet. Mature. And strangely beautiful. After a long discussion, they agreed. The rep would speak. Not a tell-all. Not a dramatic expose. Just one simple truth to stop the chaos before it spiraled out of control. He typed his statement carefully. Thoughtfully. Word by word. Deleted sentences. Added new ones. Tried different tones. Tried different endings. It took him an hour, even though the final text was small. Because he knew the world would dissect every single syllable. Meanwhile, Twitter was exploding with theories, edits, memes, heartbreak videos, and wild assumptions. One hashtag reached the #1 spot worldwide. Hashtag what did Sara say? Another hashtag followed closely behind. Hashtag Can's reaction. The rep looked at both trending topics and exhaled. If they only knew the truth, he whispered. Because the truth wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even complicated. It was something so honest that it would silence even the loudest conspiracy theories. And deep down, the rep knew, once he revealed Sara's exact words, nothing about the story would ever be the same. The world was practically vibrating by the time noon arrived. Every major entertainment outlet had published at least one article. Twitter and TikTok were drowning in theories. Instagram comments were overflowing. And through all of it, one question echoed louder than anything else: what did Sara say to him after Demet's song? It became the most dissected moment of the entire night. A moment that lasted less than 5 seconds, yet held enough emotional weight to crack the internet in half. And that was exactly why the rep finally decided it was time to speak. He sat down in front of a small group of journalists, nothing formal, nothing flashy, and cleared his throat before delivering the sentence that would dominate headlines for the days to come. "Before I say anything," he began, "I want to make one thing clear: this was not drama. It was not jealousy. It was not a confrontation. It was a human moment between 2 people." The journalists leaned forward. Pens ready. Cameras recording. What Sara said, he continued, wasn't about Demet as a person. It wasn't about the past. It wasn't about a rivalry. It was about what she saw in Can's eyes when that song played. A silence fell over the room. Heavy, expectant, electric. And then he finally said it, the sentence that shook the entire narrative. She told him, "I see the part of you that still hurts." At first, the room didn't react. They weren't expecting something so soft. So raw. So painfully honest. But then the impact hit. And it hit hard. Because that sentence didn't fuel drama, it ended it. It didn't create division, it revealed understanding. It didn't point fingers, it acknowledged truth. The rep continued, she saw that he was affected. Not because of nostalgia, not because of regret, but because sometimes the past isn't painful, just unfinished. He explained that Sara didn't say it accusingly. Didn't weaponize it. Didn't make it about her. She said it with empathy, he added. Not anger. And that was the part no one expected. Because the media wanted a rivalry. Fans wanted a heartbreak narrative. The internet wanted a poetic clash of past and present. But the reality was something much harder to process: emotional intelligence, compassion, maturity. And that was what stunned everyone the most. After the statement, the journalists were silent for several seconds, absorbing the simplicity yet depth of those words. And then the floodgates opened. Reporters firing questions, social media exploding, fans rushing to reinterpret every clip with the new context. Edits changed. Narratives shifted. The tone of the conversation softened. But the story didn't end there, not even close. Because the rep added one more detail. One final piece that tied the entire night together. After she said that, he revealed, Ken turned to her and whispered something back. Something only the two of them could hear. The room froze again. We're not revealing his words, he clarified. But I will say this, he thanked her. That sentence alone sent emotional shockwaves through the media. Thanked her. For seeing him. For understanding the unspoken. For acknowledging the part of him the world reduces to gossip. And suddenly the entire narrative shifted. It wasn't a love triangle. It wasn't drama. It wasn't tension. It was closure. Acceptance. Healing. And maybe even forgiveness. Of the past, of each other, of everything the world had projected onto them. As the statement spread across the globe, fans reacted in a way no one expected. Not with anger. Not with confusion. But with a strange sense of peace. Some commented, this explains everything. Others wrote, Sara is more mature than all of us combined. Some admitted, I thought she'd be jealous, but wow. And many said, this is the most honest ending to a story we all overcomplicated. By midnight, the storm had quieted. Not because people lost interest, but because the truth had finally landed. And it wasn't explosive. It was human. The moment wasn't about Demet. Wasn't about rivalry. Wasn't about choosing sides. It was about a woman seeing a man's unspoken wound and acknowledging it with kindness. And a man recognizing that kindness in silence. No theatrics. No accusations. No dramatic declarations. Just a sentence that stripped everything back to its core. I see the part of you that still hurts. A sentence that, in a single night, changed the entire narrative forever. And as the world reflected on that moment, one thing became clear: sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the loud ones, they're the quiet truths whispered in the middle of a song that wasn't supposed to mean anything, but still does.